Bismillah, walhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Good evening, Mulweni. Welcome each and everyone to our viewers, our listeners, and my guests in studio. Ahlan wa sahlan. Welcome, Anthony. How are you?
Thank you. I'm very well, thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Excellent, excellent. It's hot outside, but we're going to turn up the heat further.
Indeed.
Brother Raees, assalamu alaikum. How are you doing?
Salam. Good, alhamdulillah.
Okay, so
How's Shaykh doing?
I'm very good, alhamdulillah. It's not the first time we have you in studio, but it is the first time we have you in front of the camera.
Correct.
So, alhamdulillah.
And he looks very good.
He does. He's a natural. But gentlemen, we are in studio today for a very important reason, something that has caught my eye and my heart, and by extension has now made its way into my networks. And that is this amazing concept, and I'm calling it a concept first before it's a product, of the Palestine Liberation Coin. This beauty right here. And this coin is, I was first introduced to it online, just saw it by the way and thought, this is a really brilliant idea. And then I received it as a gift at the Ummatic conference, and that was a remarkable experience. But then lo and behold, I came to meet the people behind the vision, the people behind the silver, the people behind the thought process. And that's yourself, Brother Anthony and Brother Raees. So before we go any further, just tell us a bit about yourself so we can know who we are speaking to.
Okay. Thank you. I'm probably a marketer at heart. I've been in marketing all my life, in advertising in Cape Town, running big global companies, but realized, and most recently, running strategy and marketing for the globally respected Pam Golding Group. But I realized I needed to do something more meaningful with my life than selling property. So with my marketing and a bit of an entrepreneurial spirit, I think Raees thinks I'm more of an entrepreneur than I really am. We ended up today, and that story will unfold. But ostensibly, I'm a South African Cape Townian businessman all my career.
Right. And a white South African businessman, if I may add that.
And a white South African businessman.
In case you didn't notice.
Correct. A white Christian South African businessman.
That too, in case you didn't notice. So we'll get to that. And Brother Raees, I know you to be a hafiz as well as an author. And here you are sitting, not representing either of those fields, but something completely different. So tell us a bit more about yourself, inshallah.
Yeah, so I think for me, it's been an interesting journey from where I started. So left school at a young age, never went back to school, then continued on the journey of just completing my Islamic studies right through until I ended up studying in Yemen, in Tarim. Came back, wrote a book, but through that whole journey, I've been an entrepreneur most of my life. I had a couple of small businesses, selling phones, buying and selling phones. I had a small construction business. We had tiled a couple of businesses in Long Street, a couple of restaurants that's quite famous now in our community. And then, just moving on the entrepreneurial journey, I then got the opportunity to get a scholarship to Henley Business School for a postgraduate diploma in management and then an MBA in strategy, which I completed as well. And before that, actually, I missed out. I completed a BA degree at IPSA as well in Islamic studies. I got in there through recognition of prior learning through my Islamic portfolio. And now currently a partner of Anthony, which he forced me to be a partner.
Yeah, to twist his arm.
and my day-to-day, I'm a client director at All Mutual, where I look after the distribution for the Middle East clients. Yeah, that's in a nutshell.
So you remind me a little bit of Abdullah ibn Mubarak. He was one of the successors, the generation after the companions of the Prophet. Because when you read his biography, what stands out about him is that he excelled in every field. He wasn't strictly a religious scholar. He was also a warrior on the battlefield and a businessman. And, so he excelled in all the fields. And mashallah, you've really been blessed to have a very colorful portfolio. But we are here specifically about PKC, Pure Karat Creations, which is a business. But Anthony, when you first thought of Pure Karat Creations, did you think about it as, look, I'm starting a business, or was it about something bigger?
It was definitely, it was both, but it was definitely something bigger. And apropos my comment earlier on about wanting to do something with greater purpose, that was inherent to my thinking. Naturally, I've always been that way inclined. But I've been an employee all my life in corporate, and I wanted to take ownership of my destiny, firstly, of my own destiny, at the ripe old age of 65. I feel like an old man amongst you young Turks here today. But I wanted to do something for myself, and that was meaningful. And that was a key cornerstone of the purpose of Pure Karat Creations, which is what PKC stands for, and one of the key reasons why we're sitting here today. Yes,
absolutely. And I mean, look, you could, as you know, Raees, when you want to apply yourself, you could decide on anything.
Yes.
In the world today, especially, we have access to, I mean, there's nothing that's out of anyone's access any longer, in my humble opinion.
Yeah.
And if you put the right effort in and you make the right strategic moves, everything is within your reach, potentially.
Correct.
Which means that you could have decided on a plethora of opportunities. How on earth did you end up with the Palestine Liberation Coin, of all things?
Well, I'm fundamentally of the belief that I was called to do it, firstly. So, however that happened, I'm not sitting here for no reason. But that being said, I've always been fascinated about gold. I've dabbled in gold projects for over the last 20, 30 years. My father-in-law, indeed, had launched a couple of gold coins many years ago, and we constantly brainstorm. He's a real entrepreneur. He's made money, lost money, made a lot all his life. He's a real entrepreneur. And one day we were just shooting the breeze, literally, about gold. The power of gold, the luster of gold, the meaning of gold, and where that meaning takes hold in the world. So that was the first thought, gold as the thought. And what we could do, admittedly, commercially in the gold field, and particularly in the gold coin field, because that's where we had dabbled in for the last a couple of decades. And we were talking about religion, and we were struck by the Islamic religion and the global Muslim community, struck by, I think, the cohesiveness of it, firstly, and in all honesty, it was a new concept for me, but a very exciting concept to learn something new. That was one of my other pillars of leaving corporate and going on my own journey. I wanted to learn something new. I didn't want to do my old stuff. I wanted to learn something new. And I was learning about gold, I was learning about coins, and the journey then allowed me to learn about Islam. And as the conversation ensued, we more and more became, I think, excited at the opportunity to offer something into this very devout global community, because it just resonated with us. And that's what I mean when there was, to a degree, some kind of calling on that day. And so our first gold coin collection was born that night, which is called the Faith Collection, which is a celebration of the 5 pillars of Islam. And so my journey began almost as a hobby then, because I was still fully employed. This was just a sideline of interest and passion, and that was probably about 5 or 6 years ago, and the journey progressed from there in the coin area, and then to another collection, the Sacred Sanctuaries, which was honoring the 3 holy mosques, also in gold. We were only thinking gold until I met this man on my left. So I was playing in the gold market and ended up at a little mint in Kuala Lumpur, a little Islamic mint there, having consulted with all the global recognized mints, some of which turned me down, for some of which were the wrong reasons. They didn't want to handle the subject matter, which is something we'll talk about in a second. And just by chance, literally by chance, I came across this little mint online, called them, and they've just been absolutely fantastic. And they manage my current gold minting at the moment.
Nice.
And so that was the beginning of the company.
And the rest is history.
The rest is history.
So-
The rest
so-
is history.
Okay. Raees, Hafid Raees, Shaykh Raees. I'm not sure when we're so formal how I'm supposed to be addressing you. But talk us through this. So now we know we're talking about a company, we're talking about a product, we are speaking about the journey of a man, a journey of discovery and learning. What exactly are we looking at here? Talk us through what this is when we speak about this Palestine Liberation Coin.
So, quite interestingly, I was thinking about this thing, about what Sheikh is asking, and when I spoke to my wife, and how the idea actually came about was Anthony was introduced to me by a good friend of ours, both of ours, and he just told Anthony, go speak to Raees, right, with the business idea that Anthony had going. And I invited Anthony over. We sat in my living room and we discussed Pure Karat. And the one thing that came out of the discussion, most importantly, was Anthony's willingness to actually give back to the community. For me, that stood out more, and that is what this coin is about, right? And the idea unfolded actually discussing about what could we possibly do to give back to the community. And then we decided together, we came up with a discussion, what's happening in the world, what trends is happening. And then we came up with the idea that why don't we just, because one of the coins that were minted had Masjid al-Aqsa on it. And we came to the conclusion, let's just mint a Palestinian coin and let's try to do it in silver. Easy opportunity to sell it to the community, but also giving people the opportunity to give back. And that all stems from the heart and soul of Anthony willing to give back to the community. And that's how this product was formed. So I think the barakah and the blessing behind that is through this man sitting here on the right of me.
So for both of you, and I mean, you can decide who should address this, but describe the moment where this went from concept to mission.
As soon as Raees mentioned it, we met and immediately hit it off. I really liked him. Hopefully he liked me. We've got a perfect we bring completely different skills and values and perspectives to the partnership, and that's always a very healthy partnership. He was young, I was old. He was relatively inexperienced, although got an amazing career and had done 100 companies already, and I was enthralled by potentially working with him, and we just hit it off. I arrived at his house, complete stranger. We left friends, and we left with the idea. Long-winded answer to your question. As soon as it was mentioned, which was let's do something for Palestine. I don't know whose idea the silver was. Actually, your idea was let's do something for Palestine. I was already conscientized around the plight of the Palestinians because of my journey to date, and it just catalyzed in me on the spot. At that day, I went away and I started designing, and I'm overjoyed by the fact that this is my own design, all my own work. Obviously with consultation with Raees as I went along, but I investigated, I discovered, put the whole message together. But it happened, in a long-winded answer to your question, it happened on that day. In that spark, this idea was born. And once again, I say, it was meant to be born on that day. And I'm incredibly humbled by it, but I suppose the wrong word, but I'll say it anyway. I'm incredibly proud of the work we're doing and proud of what we've created, and it's the beginning of a long journey because we want to sell a lot more so that we can give back a lot more. Yeah,
it's amazing. One of the outstanding realizations that I personally had when I laid eyes on the coin for the first time, and then especially so when I had it in my hands, was, this really embodies the spirit of something that I stand by strongly and I reiterate very regularly, and that is do something. Where you see a concern, where you have a concern and you feel something, do something. we can't always do that which we consider to be the ideal, go and liberate an entire nation. It's not within our influence, it's not within our power. But at the same time, why do we then sit back and relinquish our power to zero? So therefore I can't do anything. Do something, even though it may seem not even remotely related to the ultimate objective, but it's a sign that people are willing to do whatever it takes. I was reminded of the sultans before Salahuddin al-Ayyubi and how they hired and employed people to design and construct a pulpit to be utilized in Masjid al-Aqsa when it is liberated. And this was like hundreds of years before the liberation, where they already had a vision such as this. Then I looked at the symbols on the key and on the coin, and I'd like Brother Raees to perhaps tell us a bit about some of the symbols. But I saw the key on the coin, and it was just a stark reminder of the story of the Palestinians who were kicked out in 1948, but held onto their keys because they thought that they would return, very shortly thereafter. But lo and behold, they're still holding onto those keys today. And it struck me that, wow, this is now almost like my own little key, that I'm part of this liberation. And one day I can perhaps go back and say, you know what, when we were struggling, we did this. It had no relation to the struggle of that moment, direct at least. But we did what we could, and now, we are part of this mission. We are part of something that's greater than ourselves and that will outlive us. Hafidh Raees, tell us the symbols on the coin. Did you have a role to play in that? Was it all Anthony's work?
So actually, I think two lessons out of that, or many lessons out of that. But when Anthony started designing the coin, when he left my house, I've seen many entrepreneurs come and go, sit with me, and we come up with business ideas and concepts, and I could say like 1% of them actually follow through and actually implement. And the next day, Anthony was designing the concept and looking to implement the idea, and at speed. And I think that's a lesson for us and for our entrepreneurs in our community out there. If there's a viable opportunity, something that you can execute, try and do it as quickly as possible, and get it out there and see what happens. And we can see how quick this coin had an impact on the community. But yeah, Anthony himself designed everything himself, and I would say Anthony knows more about the Palestinian issue than me myself, because the amount of research and in-depth research Anthony's gone into with regards to designing the coin, but also understanding the issue, I've learned so much myself. So all of that credit I give to Anthony.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Anthony, besides the amazing work that you've done with the coin, there's also a lot that has taken place in the background. We've seen the coin move between various names. We've also seen the profile being updated with this strange Maulana also talking about the coin online recently. So we see the development working and the coin is moving. It's picking up a story of its own. But surely there have been challenges in the background. I mean, when a white South African male decides to do something for Palestine, he's also got his friends and his networks and his family and his colleagues to have to explain this too. So at some point, you must have met with, I'd imagine, at least some opposition, if not questions. Tell us a bit about that.
It's an excellent question. The short answer that I give, and I'll go into some of the challenges, is that I find that it's my responsibility as a non-Muslim to do this work, because this is not the Palestinian challenge, if you will, or suffering is not a Muslim issue. It's a global issue. It's a human rights issue. And I think part of what I wanted to communicate as a non-Muslim, as a Christian man, was to create consciousness of the Palestinian challenge and suffering. That's a big objective of this whole exercise, is to keep talking about Palestine, to keep talking about Gaza, and to continually elevate the consciousness around it. as I say, not just in the Muslim community, but in the global community. So that I found that objective and that purpose very important and very fulfilling. And as we know, the world is polarized and more becoming polarized. I think the West is getting outed around their propaganda around the Muslim people. But as a result, and I relayed a story to you recently, and I'll quickly tell it now. A friend of mine, in walking up the mountain in Cape Town, turned to me, close friend, and said, "So now all your friends are Muslim." It was actually after the Bondi Beach tragedy. "So your friends are all now Muslim, are they?" So I sort of looked at him and I said, "What's that got to do with anything?" And he said to me, "Read some bloody books," excuse my language, "read some bloody books," and turned around and walked away. And we didn't talk for 3 weeks, and we talked every day until then for the last 40 years. And it's indicative of people's inability to actually understand the real issues and to get caught up in this polarity and this prejudice, this built-in, inherent, innate prejudice that has come out of decades of global prejudice. And I called him and I said, "If you want to talk, let's talk. If you don't want to talk, let's agree not to talk, but let's not talk."
So you called him after
I called him 3 weeks later when I didn't hear from him. He said, "Please, I want to talk." And I sat down, I said, "Paul, are you an Islamophobe?" And he said, "I'm not an Islamophobe." I said, "Then we can talk. Because if you are, then the conversation's short and over." But I think more the scourge of social media, going to your question, the rhetoric and the insults and the disgusting commentary that I'm confronted with as the CEO or as PKC and the coin, and the comments that come around what the coin stands for from the other side, so to speak, it just highlights the trouble the world is in at the moment, and the need for coming together, the need for faith. I mean, really, the need for faith. But we've got a way to go, it would seem, given what's going on in the international stage.
There's so much that stands out from that story, like the fact that he turns to you and says, "Read some books." You know, of all things. Why didn't you give that a try, buddy? That's the first thing that stands out, that people are so decided on something and genuinely believe that they are, that their viewpoint is valid and espoused. And so that's troubling. But surely, these moments, I speak from experience here, we do our best being in the spotlight with regards to certain issues. Inevitably, we will face opposition, we will face questions, and we develop some skin in our teeth, or hair in the teeth, as they say. We can resist. But Palestine has become the line in the sand for the world as we know it. And essentially, it has created a space whereby we can see or judge where we stand with people around an issue. And this must have been such an in-your-face experience for you. Did you at any point think, perhaps this isn't the right way to go, perhaps this opposition that I'm facing is a bit too much, maybe there's an easier route? Did it ever feel as though, this is not going to work as I expected? Really?
Never. And I say that emphatically because it would have come up. Because what on earth am I doing, I suppose, sticking your neck out, to use a phrase, when all my friends said to me, when he saw From the River to the Sea on the coin, he says, "China, quote unquote, China, you're sticking your neck out here. Do you really want to go here?" And I said, "Rob, I believe in it. I believe you can say whatever you like. You cannot condone the suffering that is happening in Palestine right now, and the right of those people, of the Palestinian people, to their land. So you can come with any argument you like. And this is not about political Israel, although by definition it is. But I try to steer clear of politics, but it is political by definition. But it's more about the suffering of people and those human rights. And I've never strayed from that. And as I say, how did I come to that? Because I didn't think about it a couple of years ago. And here I am, in answer to your question, absolutely emphatic and absolutely believing in what I'm doing.
Excellent. Brother Raees, tell us about the business model and silver as a product. Where does that feature in the world today? And, obviously there's been drastic changes. Can you give us some insights regarding that?
Yeah, so I think myself and Anthony, we discuss a lot around what the market trends are, and silver going up, gold going up and down. And I think for us, or personally, I believe we should build the business around the brand, right? And Pure Karat Creations is more of a gifting business. And as the Palestine coin, the Palestine Liberation Coin, the sentiment and what it does to the client when they receive such a gift, beyond the silver, beyond the gold, beyond any market value, just the value it gives to the person's soul and heart, I feel like that does it all. And also that factor of giving back to Palestine, or potentially we're launching other products, giving them back to other communities as well. For us, that is the business model, more of a shared valued approach. And where Anthony's at in his life, I feel like he's reached a point where business is important, but more importantly so is the will to give back and the will to having faith as well. And I'm in a similar boat where I have my day-to-day, I have my career running, and it's a business, but it's more focused on what, making the client feel special, but also giving back from a shared value point of view. Yeah.
And from the other side of that, the feeling that I described earlier on, the moment you receive it, it's like, okay, I'm part of the club now. I'm part of the 10,000 who's part of this mission. It really does kind of make you feel as though you belong to something greater than yourself. But what has happened to silver in the last couple of weeks, months? The price has really just jumped. Gold and silver, where does this leave the business? Is the business doing well? Where do we stand?
Yeah, that's quite interesting. I mean, myself and Anthony, we've been discussing it a lot. And we just discussed it as we walked in with regards to a purchase. I think maybe, Anthony, you can go.
Yeah, it's quite easy. Silver was never subject to such volatility. Yeah. And I think one of the important answers to that question is this is a commercial enterprise, unashamedly so. We've all got to put food on the table, but it is not profiteering. And I've been accused of that as well, using human suffering to profiteer as a dirty capitalist, if you will. So we are very sensitive around pricing. And what the increase in silver did, and in simple, well, it's not in simple terms because it's not simple. And in fact, no one really knows why it happened. Because ironically, the price of silver has come down off the high of $121, which it peaked because of geopolitics, the game between President Trump and between China. And silver, more than gold, is crucial to the development of technology, EVs, AI, solar panels. Silver is in huge demand and in short supply. So all sorts of things happened that pushed the price right up. So we started the year at $30, and 10 months later we were at $121, and we've now the silver market's now settled, I believe, sort of around 75 and 80. I think it's going to settle there and then go up closer to 100 by the end of the year. That's my feeling, my learned feeling, but who knows? But the challenge, going to your question, is around, how do we price? How do we buy? We don't want to overprice, but we want to communicate the value, as you quite eloquently put it. This is not about silver. This product it happens to be made from silver and therefore provides the buyer security and solidity around the investment fundamentals that is silver. So it gives you the platform, but it's about so much more. And as Raees said, it is a gift. We are positioning it as the ideal gift, not to trade necessarily, though you can always trade it down the line, but to give it to your beloveds, your kids, hand it down as an heirloom. There's too much meaning in this for it to be a traded entity. And it's that meaning that we put a value on and that we therefore price at. And we, excuse me, we price it very fairly. We're not looking to make money. We give 30% of that margin away to the gift to the givers. And you would be called foolhardy to try and build a business on that financial model. And as a result, with the silver price going up, we had to buy, and we had to buy at a high price because I didn't want to run out of stock, because we were running out of stock because they run on silver in January. So excuse me, it's a challenging business because no one knows where silver's really going. But the upside is that those that bought coins in March of last year at 1,750 have received a great investment just on the silver basis. But it's now priced at 2,990, having been up at 3,450. So it's we are ethically and morally bound to give value, I think. And it's determining that value in the context of the volatile silver price that is challenging. We know there's added value.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
Like you said, the story matters so much more than the metal in this case.
So much.
And it's different from purchasing, for example, a Kruger and where you're purely going for the metal.
Exactly.
But Raees, there's been, Anthony just mentioned the gift of the givers, a name that requires no introduction to the people of South Africa and arguably the rest of the world. When and how did this partnership start? Why? And how's that going for us at the moment?
So, I mean, Anthony can chip in here as well, but we initially, when we launched the coin, there was a different partner that we initially launched the coin with. And with regards to, from a communication point of view and all of that, it just wasn't working out. A respected entity in the community, we didn't mention the name, but then myself and Anthony, we had multiple discussions around changing that partnership, because the partner involved needs to be able to provide the impact to Palestine and be on the ground. So the money that we're trying to raise through the business needs to kind of have showcase, and clients needs to see that the funds are having impact in Palestine. And Anthony, having had a past relationship with Dr. Imtiaz, actually then reached out to Dr. Imtiaz, and Anthony himself has built that relationship. I haven't been a part of it because I've been quite busy on my end, and that's actually through Anthony. And I think, Anthony, you can mention going forward, like, yeah,
I think that's the story, and all that we asked in return, because it was critical to the business model, was marketing reach. Obviously, credentials and endorsement is important to us. We're a new company, and silver, online sales, all those things are potentially fraught with scammers, and it was very important for us to have those credentials. So certainly being endorsed by the gift to the givers has provided us with that, but also providing their marketing reach, which in turn translates into sales, which in turn translates into increasing the ability to contribute. And they've been absolutely fantastic. I meet regularly with Dr. Imtiaz. I really admire him. He's doing incredible work, and he's been incredibly supportive. And, interestingly enough...
before you tell us about the stats on your side, the 30% figure, I mean, nobody compelled you to contribute to any organization, nor that you should choose Gift of the Givers, nor that you should give 30% of the proceeds. Tell us a bit about that.
It's a big number.
It's a big number.
It was if you say 10%, it doesn't sound so good, and it's small. If you say 20, you're getting there. We ended up on 30. As I say, business strategists would be aghast. But it was arbitrary, but it felt like better than 10 and better than 20. 30, a third, felt good. and it's a third of. It's not quite a third of net profit. It's kind of a third of gross profit minus the direct costs that we spend in driving those sales.
I have to jump in here, right?
Yeah.
So you say it's arbitrary, but it's not. You said it's a third. A third is prophetic. So in one instance, one of the companions come to the Prophet, peace be upon him, and they ask, what should we leave as bequests? Like when we die, we are allowed to bequeath some of our wealth, whereas the overwhelming majority would be already stipulated by sacred law to go to certain heirs. So the question is essentially about what are we allowed to bequest? And the companion keeps pushing, and he says, look, a third. And a third is a lot.
Okay.
So that athuluthu kathir, that's a prophetic statement that stands in my. So when you said a third, I thought, it comes from there.
So there you go. It was arbitrary in my mind, but was preordained,
There we go. Absolutely, yeah.
So it comes down, and the amazing thing, I just for the purpose of this exercise of this podcast, chatted to the guy that heads up Gift of the Givers on the ground in Gaza. I said, Malik, can you just give me some numbers, please, because it's important that people know what's happening. And I won't read them all to you, but there's and this is just for January, there were 450 food parcels, 606 vegetable parcels, 7,000 hot meals. There's bread distribution, baby milk, water provision. The amount of work that the Gift of the Givers is doing on the ground there, and therefore, when you buy the coin, those funds only go to Gaza. They don't go into the overall scope of the Gift of the Givers. They are demarcated very strictly by myself and in agreement with Dr. Imtiaz to go into these projects in Gaza. So it's incredibly heartwarming. As you said, it's very little. And I guess the thing that I feel at night when I put my head on the pillow is, am I really making a difference, with 10 grand here and 10 grand there? Although we're about 100 grand that we've accumulated to date.
Oh, wow.
That we've contributed in the project to date. And when we sell out the 10,000 coins, that will equate to a couple of million.
I have no doubt that within, the few hours after the release of this podcast, you'd have to start a new project. Because the story, just honestly, the story of the coin sells itself. It really does. And when I was initially approached by you gentlemen, to me it was like, why isn't the story out there? Why isn't it told? So I'm hoping that this will really get that story out there, because as we now sit on the cusp of entering the month of Ramadan, so many Muslims the world over start thinking about what can we do, what can we gift, and this type of thought has never really been sufficiently addressed, where people can now do something meaningful. And while dates is always an option for the beginning of the fast, people are already thinking about your Eid gifts and things like that. What other gift can you put forward that has as much meaning for what the world and what the Ummah, the Muslim nation, is currently facing than a coin with a story such as this? So I'm really chuffed to be part of the story and to be part of the venture, because any one of these aspects would be sufficient for us to host a podcast about and say, listen here, we're going to raise funds and send it to Gift of the Givers. That would have been enough.
Right.
Or we have this coin and it's a reminder of Palestine. That would have been enough. But all of this put together, it calls for a moment of celebration and accomplishment. And we congratulate you on this project, and we pray that it only increases and it benefits the people of Palestine, the people of Gaza, and all of those who are going to be conscientized as a result of receiving the coin. That's another element. So Pure Karat supports humanitarian work, including Gift of the Givers. Now, the real question is, what would be our call to action for the community? How do we want people to number one, where do they get the coins, and how do we want them to buy it? What are the ideas behind this? Who gifts this to whom?
anybody can gift it to anybody, and I've discovered that, because I make it my mission to try and talk to as many of the buyers as possible for my learning about buyers, because that's what a marketer should do, but also my learning about Islam, and thirdly my learning about the product. And what I've discovered is that anybody can gift it to anybody, and everybody has. I talk about your loved ones, your beloveds, your circle, but husbands to wives, parents to children, children to parents. I've had discussions around particular individuals wanting a particular certificate number because they want to celebrate the year of the birth of their father, because they're giving it to their father. Two things that come out very strongly are multiple purchases. Firstly, a lot of people are buying 5 or 10 of them to gift across their circle. And a lot of them are rebuying, because what is very joyful for me is when people receive the coin, they contact me often proactively and say they can't believe how beautiful this thing is in the flesh. And it's really true.
Absolutely.
You can't depict it on a screen or whatever. And when you hold it in your hand, and maybe it's more than the aesthetic beauty, it's the spiritual beauty that resonates in your hand.
Absolutely.
I really believe that. And people are overjoyed when they hold it. And then they buy further because they just love it so much. So,
I mean, I could be philosophical and say it's the first time people actually hold money that's worth something in their hands.
Exactly.
But now, look, we have so many options for this, and I think people should really give it some thought. For example, a community should consider getting a gift for the imam of a coin of this nature. Right, people who serve in the community for a long period of time, those elderly musallis who pray on the chair. Imagine showing them a gift of appreciation just for being part of the community. Students for their teachers, right, as a Ramadan gift, as an Eid gift. Students for their teachers. And note, I'm both an imam and I'm a teacher, so I stand to.
So you're looking to get a whole bunch of coins.
Hint, everyone. And then in addition to that, of course, you have your heirlooms, and I think that's a very beautiful one. Where parents hand it down to their children. But the one that I found to be the most enticing when speaking to students, interestingly, was our sisters asking for a dawah in the form of the Palestine Liberation Coin, or several of them, as opposed to a random figure, because this is something that I find our sisters actually struggle with quite regularly. You can ask for anything. It's not strictly symbolic, and it's not also strictly monetary. It kind of has a combination of both. So what do you ask for? I'm telling them these days, this silver coin has already increased in value. And as your marriage goes on, so too the coin grows in value, along with the story, of course. So these are some of the ideas that stood out for me personally. Raees, have you also come across anything interesting?
Yeah, I've come across a couple of interesting things. My wife also asked me to buy like 50 coins, but I'll speak to Anthony for some discount.
I can give you a good discount.
Yeah, so I mean, for me, the story that stands out from a gifting point of view, I think I had about 3 coins that I gifted to a couple of interesting guys, and one of them was actually a Palestinian, where I gifted to him overseas, and when I presented it to him, he just teared up. He's a Palestinian who's never visited Palestine. He has family who's still living in Palestine, in Gaza, and he messages me like at least once a month, and he's like, I can't believe my eyes when I see this coin. It makes me tear up, and it makes me hope that the story plays out and Palestine actually gets liberated. So, for me, just sharing that on this podcast and him sharing that with me shows why this whole story is worth it, and what we're doing really has an impact.
That's an amazing idea in and of itself. If you know somebody from Palestine or from Gaza specifically, often when I meet people from Palestine, the first thing I do is I hug them. I tell them how I feel. I tell them that I'm always with them in solidarity. But imagine we can go a step further and say, you know what? Perhaps you don't have a key of return. Let this be your coin of return. Let this be your coin of return. So there's so many opportunities. But of all the years of Ramadans that I've experienced, never has there actually been an option that's more than just the physical product, but stands for something greater than that. And this is why I'm proud to be part of it. How exactly am I part of it? How did I get part of it? When did that happen?
Well, I think the same as what happened with me meeting Raees, then Raees introducing me to you and us having a wonderful conversation, and the rest is history.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we do welcome you onto the team. What do we call you? You're a non-executive director of the board and a spiritual consultant and advisor, keeping us correct, if you will, keeping me correct. But once again, I'm learning, and I'm extremely sensitive to being, I don't want to say inappropriate, but misguided. I want to make sure I honor the faith properly, because we're putting out messages and we're dealing with something, as you quite rightly have said, incredibly powerful, but incredibly sensitive, incredibly valuable, incredibly intimate, and it warrants the honor that it deserves. And it's wonderful to have you on the team as
I hope I live up to all of that.
Well, you have already. You have already.
And I think just to add to that, I think learning from previous relationships when we started out, I think when having the conversation with Shaykh Irshaad was just bringing somebody on board from a spiritual aspect that is as close to this issue as we are, but also want to see an impact and change as much as we do. So I think that for me hit immediately. And we also, as much as we are business people, we need somebody to also govern us and be like, let's pause, or let's look at it in this way.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you can get lost in the detail as well. And I think Sheikh's the perfect person for that.
I mean, look, I hope and pray that I can live up to my namesake. My name literally translates as Irshaad Sedick. If you construct it as a mudaf in construction, it would be guiding a friend. Guiding of a friend.
Right.
So if I provide guidance of a friend, great.
Yeah.
I do have several questions for you, Raees, that I actually didn't ask you, deliberately so, because your story is far too fascinating to denigrate it to a few questions. I want to unpack your spiritual journey, how it relates to a business mindset as well as a business such as this. I think we have a lot to learn from that. It's a dichotomy that people obviously create for themselves in their minds, that we either the one or the other, and we can unpack some of that. And then with the coin, is there anything else that we need to say absolutely, because we're going to kick ourselves if we don't?
Well, how to get it?
Yes.
That would be a good thing to say.
There we go.
It's a very simple online process. It's an e-commerce platform. You go on, you buy it. I'm in control, so to speak. I receive all those orders personally. I pack those coins personally, sensitively and honorably. I arrange delivery to your door within 3 to 5 working days. It's a very simple process, and you will receive your coins. If you want them quicker, you can let me know, and I can in fact arrange an overnight delivery to you. And failing that, because there are not a lot, but certainly a significant portion of people that don't like the online environment and deal with me personally. You can WhatsApp me off the platform. It comes into my own personal WhatsApp box. I deal with you personally, and we can do EFTs offline if you prefer, because I understand the sensitivities around e-commerce in certain instances. So it's very easy.
And we are at which number now of the 10,000?
1750. I just sent off the 1,750th this morning.
Okay.
And that's only in South Africa. Interesting to note, we are, in fact, on Friday, we go live in the UK.
Oh, wow.
Which is very exciting. So to all South Africans, although I'm sure there might be some beyond the boundaries of South Africa that might see this podcast, and silver being silver, I suggest you get your orders in now.
And the going rate at the moment
is 2990. 2990.
Excellent.
So it is a very good price, and I'm available.
Do we expect to see any launches beyond the Liberation Coin in the near future?
We do. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so I think if you go to the website now, you will see a gold version of the sacred sanctuaries, the 3 holy mosques. And myself and Anthony, we discussed, and gold could be tricky from a gifting perspective, from a price perspective, all of that. And we've decided to launch the sacred sanctuaries in a silver set. And I think from a gifting perspective, it's quite nice. And yet again, the designs and the story behind it all comes from Anthony, which is so amazing.
I've seen the designs in gold, and they are breathtaking.
Yeah.
Absolutely
It's
breathtaking.
going to be that, but in silver.
But it's all
And it's a beautiful set of 3. So it really is a beautiful set. And once again, filled with meaning.
That's going to be like the go-to Hajj gift. If somebody goes on Hajj, that's like going to be the gift to give somebody that goes on Hajj.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, great stuff. I'm very excited, and I hope the business prospers. Not just because of the spiritual elements of it, but because when we find that there's good, morally sound, ethical businesses, we should support them. So even better when you have such a noble cause behind it and a story. I'm glad to be part of it, and I hope that we'll at least spread the word so that everyone can know about this amazing story and, be part of it. Barakallahu feekum. Thank you, gentlemen.
Can I just add one last
Absolutely.
thing? I think not related to the coin, but related because we are here from a community benefit point of view. And Anthony mentioned it earlier in the podcast, I think speaking to the youth, but also speaking to the generation, which is my father's generation, Anthony's generation, is around where I see a real gap in business, but also community, education, everything around working together. I mean, where do you find an advisor of a business 30 years younger in experience, but also age than Anthony, who's the business owner and running the business? So from a day-to-day, I don't get involved in anything. I'm just a sounding board to Anthony, and I help out with some of the relationship development and all of that. But what we've managed to achieve in this year, it's less than a year even, put together a full business running, but also impact from a community point of view for Palestine and all of that, and allowing people to get the gifts that they got. I feel like that's something in our community that we can learn from, because I've been around having discussions with youth and some of the senior guys in the community where there's a real gap where some of our seniors have nephews and close friends that kids don't even have access to those seniors from a business perspective. And I feel like that is something that Anthony's brought into our community now that we can learn from. Because, I mean, growing up, we didn't have access to our uncles and our grandfathers. We had no exposure to what they were doing on the ground from a business perspective. But I think through this journey, for me, the biggest taking is how can I then, from that perspective, actually give back to the community and open up that way of thinking to the community where what are we doing from a business perspective and a continuation point of view for our youth to take on and build bigger and brighter futures going forward. So thank you, Anthony, for that.
My pleasure. Thank you. Thank you. And if I can add to that, my words of wisdom, if I may impart a simple idea, and you raised it earlier on, when you're getting into even if you're in business, but getting into a new business, take action. Do something. When Raees sends me a connection, a phone, somebody said, phone this guy because of this, I phone him right away, immediately. Anything that comes my way, I do it immediately because that builds momentum. It builds return. It builds confidence. It's been my philosophy my entire life is take action. Just do something today, now. Don't wait.
And even in some of the strategic discussions we have, it's never right or wrong. We learn from each other. And some strategic ideas I come up with don't actually work, but then Anthony's like, no, let's rather do it this way, and vice versa. So I think that's important, working together, different energies, different experience levels, and just being able to, we see what the goal is, what the opportunity is, and build a strategy out to play at that and leave the people politics out of it, but being able to execute on something, and that's something we can all learn from.
I think we are very excited to see what the future holds for PKC, Pure Karat Creations, and the various projects and partnerships that you venture into. I wish you all of the best, and I look forward to it. Jazakumullah khairan. Thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you.